Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm working on a new mosaic that could become a tray, a trivet, or even a piece of wall art, whatever you decide to make of it. It's based on a botanical garden design that I've already sketched out and printed. In this video, I want to share how I go about cutting stained glass for mosaics. There are many ways to approach this, and every artist has their own preferences and techniques. I just want to show you what works for me in case it helps you discover some tips or ideas that you can use or even adapt into your own unique process. Let's start with the tools and materials I'm using today. First of all, stained glass, and I'm using a variety of colors that I have left from other projects. Glass cutters, both pistol grip and pencil type. Wheel nippers. Sharpies, silver for dark glass and black for light glass. Glass cutting oil. Running pliers. Safety glasses. Face mask. Aluminum ruler. Cutting mat. Sweeping brush. Plastic container. Grinder. Ring saw. And finally, vellum paper and carbon paper. You'll find the links to these tools in the video description. Let's begin with the basics of scoring and cutting glass. A glass cutter doesn't actually slice the glass. It scores it, creating a line that weakens the structure. Then we use running pliers to snap it cleanly along the line. Before starting all that, it's important to add oil to the wheel of the cutter, and I do so by dipping the cutter into a small jar with a cotton pad at the bottom and add glass cutting oil. That way, I don't overdo it and avoid leaks from the reservoir. When scoring stained glass, there is a very specific sound you want to listen for. It's a subtle, crisp, scratching noise that's hard to describe in words, but I'll try to let you hear it clearly in the video. And voila! That's the sound I'm talking about. So that way you know that you are applying the right amount of pressure. When I'm cutting larger pieces of glass, I use waffle grates as my base. They help catch any small shards and keep things stable. But for smaller pieces, I prefer using a self-healing cutting mat with inch markings. It makes measuring easier and I don't lose those tiny glass bits in the waffle grate holes. I just make sure to sweep away any debris between cuts to keep the surface clean. Let's cut the first flower from my design. I always have printed templates on regular paper and vellum paper. Vellum is especially helpful for tracing on opaque glass. For this flower, I'm using a transparent turquoise glass. I cut strips slightly larger than the petal shapes. Then I trace the petals with a Sharpie, and after that, I begin scoring the straight sides. The upper curved section is trickier, so I switch to wheel nippers and shape it gradually. Once I have a rough cut, I take it to the grinder. Grinders are amazing for refining edges. The water reservoir keeps the bit and glass cool while minimizing glass dust. Some grinders use sponges, others have splash guards. Mine didn't have one, so I made my own splash guard to keep my workspace as clean as possible. Take that in account if you are trying to find your own grinder. I also added some links in the description below. I start with a regular bit to smooth the petal edges and do all 8 petals first. Then I switched the bit for a skinnier one to shape the indents that you can see here in the middle of each petal. Since the skinny bit sits higher, I have to add water to it, either manually or add a sponge behind the main one to maintain contact. It works really well this way. Also, if you're working with small pieces, consider using a tool like Nick's Grinder Mate. It protects your fingers and gives you a solid grip. It's the one that you can see here in blue. This time, for a smaller flower in matte blue glass, I use vellum over glass with carbon paper underneath to trace the design. After that, I go over the lines with a Sharpie for better visibility on camera. The process is the same. I cut straight edges with a glass cutter, shape the top with nippers, and grind the edges. And here is a useful tip. I place a container under the piece I am cutting to catch glass shards. And this is how this piece is looking so far. If you are enjoying this process, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And stay tuned because in the next video, I'll show you how I put all these glass pieces together to complete the botanical garden mosaic. I think you're going to love how it all comes to life. Some flowers have symmetrical petals. For those, I trace one petal and I mark, in this case, every centimeter, but sometimes I use inches depending on what is easier for the size of my element. Then, I create diamond shapes as follow. Once scored and snapped, I round the corners to make them look more organic using nippers and the grinder. It's a simple and effective way to speed up the process while keeping things consistent. For flowers with uneven petals, I number each piece to keep track. After cutting and grinding them, I keep the numbers visible until I lay everything out over the template. That way, I can tweak as needed and make sure everything fits just right. Now let's talk about the skinny curved strips for stems and leaves. I trace the design, score the curve, and tap gently on the back of the glass with my pencil glass cutter to start a fracture line, just like this. Then I use running pliers and press on one end of the score, but gently until I hear this little cracking sound on the glass. Then I go over the other end and finish the cut as follows. This can be challenging, especially for beginners, but don't get discouraged. It gets easier with practice. Let's talk about one of my favorite tools, the diamond ring saw. This thing can cut forward, backward, even sideways. It's fantastic for intricate shapes that are nearly impossible with just a cutter. I use the saw to cut leaf shapes and even inner vein lines. It's fun, precise, and expands what you can do with glass enormously. Before using the saw, I apply a product called Mark Stay to keep my Sharpie lines intact since the saw uses water. Then I guide the glass carefully with a wooden stick if the piece is small. Look at this fun shape, for example. So I'm going to keep working on my leaves until I complete all of them. And before I finish, one last more important tip. Always clean your grinder and saw after each session. Remove dirty water, wipe out the sludge, and you are good to go for the next time. Now that all my flowers and leaves are cut and ready, I can't wait to start putting everything together. Stay tuned for the next video where I'll show you how to assemble and complete this beautiful botanical mosaic. Thanks for watching. I hope this video gave you some ideas and inspiration for your own glass projects. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if you found it helpful. See you soon!